Kenshin Studios is a YouTube channel that was created on August 14, 2018 by two individuals, Nico Molnar and Chris Cuypers. Yet the story goes further back. These two met in 2013 online when Nico approached Chris to help him make a small Machinima Godzilla fan film, technically making Kenshin Studios 10 years old in 2023. This would be their first project together, Godzilla World Apocalypse.
Hi everyone, my name is Nico Molnar, and for those of you who may not know, I am the co-founder. I am a creative writer, director for Kenshin Studios. It might have been back in 2013. I was a young lad. I was surfing YouTube and I found a couple of Chris's videos while he was under the popular name of GojiFan93. And I really enjoyed his videos, and I subscribed to him, and I was actually his third subscriber. And I was constantly commenting and liking all of his videos, and eventually, that friendship kind of grew over time, from like emailing and such. So yeah, that's kind of how I met Chris.
I met Nico back in 2013. He was actually a early subscriber of mine back on the GojiFan93 channel. And from there, he was very active on my channel. He would comment a lot. He would ask some of the requests for top 10s and all that. And so through that interaction is sort of how we began our friendship.
So Godzilla World Apocalypse was kind of an idea that I had in mind. I was kind of surfing the internet one day, and I didn't really see any like Godzilla fan films out there. It was just kind of an idea that popped in my head, and popped in my head. Who better to ask than none other than Chris Cuypers, also known as GojiFan93 at the time. So I asked him, and yeah, he happily agreed to it, and yeah, it was just kind of an idea.
And then a little shortly afterwards is when he approached me and he asked me if he wanted my help in a fan film or producing a fan film. And I thought that was really cool at the time. And so I was like, yeah, definitely. I felt honored that someone wanted my help and to do a fan film. And so thus began us working on Godzilla World Apocalypse.
So about 2 hours worth of script writing from 13-year-old me, and some game footage from Godzilla Unleashed, the Wii version. Thank you, Chris. And a little bit of, clever editing. And yeah, I understand Chris had he was going through hell. he went through hell. I shouldn't say it was really hell with editing or anything, but it was more of hell like he had to control the monsters to do certain things, and the AI in Wii Unleashed isn't as isn't really very good.
I think Godzilla World Apocalypse, it turned out as best as it could at that time. Nico and I at the time were very, very new to content creation, and especially like script writing and making just a fan film in general. So it's very crude, but I still always hold a certain place in my heart for that fan film because it was the starting point. It was the place where we started at, and I think that even though it does have many, many faults to it, I do think that it definitely a nice timestamp on the beginnings of Kenshin Studios.
I thought it turned out really awesome upon release. I'm still really proud of it. It was the first project we worked on together. I am really happy with it to this day. Looking back on it, I cringe a little bit, but you know what? It's fine. It was our very first project. It holds a special place in my heart. It really kickstarted off a lot of things for the studio, for me and Chris's friendship. It did a lot of things. So the biggest thing I took from Godzilla World Apocalypse is really, I'm not going to say it as it was the first fan film, Godzilla fan film, because I'm almost certain it isn't. But it is a fan film that was kind of like a base or like a building block. As in, once it released, about like 50 other fan films. I don't want to say 50, that's a bit over exaggerated, but a bunch of other fan films just kind of spurted just from this one fan film, and I think that's the beauty of Godzilla World Apocalypse, because it really showed other creators and other fans that, hey, you don't need all this sophisticated, all the sophisticated software, or really you don't need stop motion, you don't need all the sophisticated stuff to make a fan film or a machinima, whatever you want to do. All you need is really just kind of the mindset and the effort, and just not necessarily the best equipment, but the right equipment. And it was really awesome, and I love it for that. That's why it holds such a special place in my heart, is for that reason.
After Godzilla World Apocalypse wrapped up in 2013, audiences of Chris's YouTube channel, GojiFan93, loved the short film. This prompted the two to make a sequel. This time, Chris opted to change the format from gameplay footage to completely original-made animation. With this tall order, the two needed to expand the team. Thus, we enter the second project, Godzilla, Return of Space Godzilla.
So immediately after Godzilla World Apocalypse, I immediately went to Chris and I said, hey, we need to do a sequel. Chris was like, whoa, we just released it. I want to take a break. I want to slow it down. I'm like, okay, you know what? That's fine. Meanwhile, I was cooking up stuff without him. I was cooking up stuff without Chris. And, I was cooking up. And yeah, I mean, I just kind of went off without him for a little bit there until about late November, early December. And I figured, you know what, he helped me, so I'm going to throw in his favorite Kaiju Space Godzilla, and that's going to be the main antagonist in the film.
So with Return of Space Godzilla, that started really shortly after Godzilla World Apocalypse wrapped up. I really didn't know that Nico wanted to do another one, but he came to me like real quick after World Apocalypse came out, and after it was well received is when we kind of got confidence to continue doing another fan film. But this time I didn't want to use like game footage, because with World Apocalypse, we used video game footage from Godzilla Unleashed, and when you use video game footage, you're limited to what you can do. So I told him that I wanted to do animation, and that was a tall order at the time, but I'm really happy that I did, looking back.
So animation, that is the biggest thing that went into Godzilla Return of Space Godzilla. Chris was very much on board of making a sequel for Wrath of the Hybrid. Once we got together, there was one review actually that kind of led to the decision of animation. Shout out to Nicholas Walker. I know you're out there. I hope you're gonna watch this too. But no, we owe him. We owe him for kind of pushing us to deciding on animation. He came up with a review. He's like, oh, it could have been better in a lot of aspects, and Chris said, no, I want to do animation, to do what we actually want, and he didn't really want to do game footage again. So the transition into animation, put more time into the script. Again, I was still a young lad, so yeah, I put a lot more effort into it. I think I was 14 at the time that I wrote the script, and it was very vulgar at the time as well. So with that being said, I think it also took me about a month to write the whole script as well with the plot. Plot wasn't anything crazy.
So the first thing that came into making Return of Space Godzilla was obviously making a bigger script. Nico was in charge of writing that script, which took him, I think, like about a couple weeks to a month. And then we also had to expand the team. We needed more people on hand because Nico and I didn't know how to make animation. So we actually gathered some people to help us with that. And we gathered MMD Charizard as our first animator. He did a few test shots for us and all that, but then shortly after he had to actually leave the project due to the fact that he just felt like he couldn't, he didn't really fit the project like focus of what we needed to do. So what we had to do is we had to get 2 more animators, is when we found Asusa Productions, and then we also found James Myers.
The team expanded by a lot. So it was originally just me and Chris. We then expanded to MMD Charizard. He was our original animator at the time to be animating the entire film. We brought in our original voice cast, which featured Rich Iso, Rob from ETN, Diego Doom, Danielle Faye, or also known as Kaiju Danielle. So we really expanded our team. Unfortunately, MMD Charizard had to drop out of the project due to personal reasons, personal perspectives, and that's fine. That was cool. That was cool. We were left in kind of a tough position, and then that's when we brought in Asusa Productions and Comedy Force. That we brought in those two. They collaborated, worked together, and they really helped bring the film together.
And the release of Return of Space Godzilla was super memorable and one of my most treasured favorite moments, because that was when we got to show it and premiere it at G-Fest 2015. And that was one of the proudest moments of my life.
So this one was kind of blurry to me. This is because we did premiere this at G-Fest, believe it or not. Chris was there for the premiere of it at G-Fest. I was not there, unfortunately. I wish I was there, but it's okay. It's all right. But I don't remember it vividly off the top of my head. I do remember being extremely excited. I had to have been excited. I mean, we put a lot of time and effort into this. I think I was really nervous too.
So looking back at Return of Space Godzilla, I think that it was definitely the next level for us. And it sort of shifted gears into where we knew we were going to actually do a third one. We wanted to do a trilogy now. And I think it also helped in terms of upping our game and then just having a more serious attitude towards it to make something even better.
It's definitely a midpoint. It's a midpoint. I think we set the bar and we achieved it. That is what I think of Godzilla Returning Space Godzilla. We set higher standards and we achieved those higher standards. That's where it holds a special place in my heart. And I think I frankly overlook it a lot of the time. I really do. I'm not entirely sure why. We accomplished so much with Godzilla Return of Space Godzilla. We excelled so much since World Apocalypse in terms of everything. I guess with the following project, I guess that's kind of why it's overshadowed in my head. But I'm still just as proud as being involved and be able to work with all the people that I was able to work with for this project. And it was really special, and being able to accomplish all of our goals and being able to improve ourselves in making this film. So I'm proud of it. I need to give some more praise. Love everyone that worked on it. Love the film. Still holds a special place in my heart.
When Return of Space Godzilla premiered at G-Fest 2015, it was time to conclude the trilogy. When Chris returned home after the premiere, the duo immediately got to work on finishing the Godzilla Kenshin trilogy. After about 6 months of writing the script, Kenshin Studio's biggest production was ready to be shown to the world. This would be none other than Godzilla, Wrath of the Hybrid.
The roles flipped on this one. So Chris actually approached me immediately after the premiere of Godzilla Return of Space Godzilla, and he said, "Hey, listen, I want to get started on this immediately." And I was like, "Okay, you know what? That's fine. Let's get started on this." We had something going here. Chris must have been feeling the creative edge, and we rolled with it. That was the main mindset. So I believe it might have been a couple weeks. It was either a week or 2 weeks after G-Fest. It was immediately after G-Fest. I know that for a fact. After the premiere of Godzilla Return of Space Godzilla, me and Chris had a meeting, and we immediately started fleshing out details. Just like that, we were right in the swing of things, and we just started going.
So then comes Wrath of the Hybrid, which is one of the crowning achievements in my personal opinion, when it comes to Kenshin Studios. And with that, we really hit the ground running. As soon as I came back from G-Fest, I told Nico, I was like, all right, let's start script writing. And I actually joined the script writing team for that one. And so being more involved with this one, I really wanted to make something that was really spectacular. And so in doing that, one of the first things we thought of was, let's make an original monster. Like, what if we had our own original monster to fight Godzilla in this film?
So we definitely want to stick with animation. This time we wanted to take a step up. So in Godzilla Return to Space Godzilla, we used MMD. This time we went into SFM, which in our mind is a step up from MMD. So with that being said, we transitioned from having MMD animators into SFM animators. So with that being said, we brought in Ultraman Ultimo, and we brought in Quinquatrables, also known as Sean, for those of you who may know.
So I first heard about Wrath of the Hybrid from Chris's channel. I remember him posting the teaser, and it was just had the eye, the teaser picture with the eye showing up, and I thought it was really cool. That's where I first heard about it anyways.
We also had to get more team members, because what ended up happening was Asusa and James Myers, they couldn't continue to work with us for Wrath of the Hybrid, so we had to find 2 more animators, which is where we found Quinquatrables, or Sean as you guys know him as, and then Ultraman Ultimo. And those 2 did such a phenomenal job with the animation in terms of Wrath of the Hybrid.
Along with that, we also brought in a composer, Vinnie, if I recall the story correctly. But Vinnie must have seen the fan film and approached Chris and said, hey, it's a good film. Are you guys looking for a composer? And I'll compose for it. And that was awesome. Love it. Vinnie, you're the man.
I first heard of Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid at my first G-Fest back in 2015. It was after the debut of Chris and Nico's second fan film, Godzilla, The Return of Space Godzilla. They made a little announcement that they're working on a third fan film, and that they needed a couple of animators and a music composer, or so to say. And at that time, I was only doing music for Alex Murdich with his fan-made game Godzilla Kaiju Battle Royale. Shortly after that, Alex introduced me to Chris. It was like at an arcade party at G-Fest. It was pretty fun. I said I wanted to give it a shot, and we pretty much started off from there.
And then we also continued to have voice casts. We actually had a voice cast in Return to Space Godzilla, and we brought them back for the next one. And we had Rich Iso, Diego Doom, Rob Rosado from Entertainment Talk Nation, and we had Danielle Faye, who was Daikaiju Danielle on the internet. And they all did an amazing job coming back, and it was really cool to just have that consistency with the characters.
Again, we upgraded in animation. We changed out the staffing a little bit there.
I remember it being extremely hard and us being in over our head. My role was a co-animator. My partner was Ultraman Ultimo. Together we animated the monster and human scenes, but I primarily did the monster scenes. He helped out more with the human scenes.
Like, working on the project, it was definitely something. It was definitely challenging and fun at the same time. Everybody had a schedule to go by. I was in charge of the music. Chris and Nico were doing writing and directing. Sean and Ultimo were in charge of animating, and Danielle Faye was in charge of the artwork and concept art. So it was like a little mini film studio. It was actually enjoyable.
Again, with Wrath of the Hybrid, we were able to premiere it at G-Fest in 2018, and that was at the ultimate height, I would say, in terms of Kenshin Studios and what we just achieved. It was 3 years in the making, and Wrath of the Hybrid was such a hardship to do because everyone in the group we were going through a lot of personal things at the time as well. But the fact that we were able to stick with it and actually complete it is just spectacular. So looking back at Wrath of the Hybrid, I feel like that was like a pivotal moment for us where we thought, okay, this is really cool. I think we know where we're going, and we continued on.
Writing. The plot, the script, everything was probably a year in the making. At least a year and a half. Year and a half. I don't have the original script on me right now, but this is the most amount of effort that we put into script writing, story writing, into a film, into our fan film thus far. And we also included the baby boy, Kudajira. That this is the introduction to our original kaiju, and that was really awesome. There's a cool story behind that. So I remember we were kind of down at wit's end. Well, Chris was down at wit's end. Chris was having a lot of health problems, and we had to try to get the model created. And the guy who's creating the model just kind of didn't finish the job. And Chris was like, you know what? I'm done. Whatever. And then just as that happened, I got together with Sean, and we actually went out and had Kudajira commissioned. And that is actually the original model you see in the movie. Is the original model that Sean had commissioned for the film. So yeah, that's the story.
My opinion on it is that it's pretty good for what it is. I think that you can tell that it's made by fans. I think despite all the cringiness and the edginess of the film, I have so much pride in it. You know, we finished it. That's the biggest thing. Like, this had so many hurdles to get through to be made, and it just feels like it shouldn't have been finished, but it was, and that's awesome.
Never been a part of that, so it was definitely challenging as well. Yeah, it was like month to month. Like, we would get certain things done, like certain segments of a film. Like, usually Ultimo or Sean would get something done, and I would take a look at the animating or their animations, and I would try to compose something that would fit that short film video that they would send. Kind of like what actual composers do. They'll see a blank film with no sound, and they'll try to compose to fill that segment of the film. It was actually pretty enjoyable. It's definitely a learning experience above all else, though. I had a lot of fun working on that project, though, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
I was actually at the premiere of Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid at G-Fest of 2018, and it was beautiful. I loved it. It was amazing. It was a once in a. I teared up. It was very special for me, and I remember going up for like a Q&A at the end of the premiere, and I remember doing like a little speech and tearing up. It was very emotional for me, because we all went through so much from 2016 to 2018, us as a group, and it was very emotional. And seeing the turnout of the amount of people that went and saw the film, and seeing the turnout on YouTube, it was really special. And yeah, we also had to compete with Godzilla King of the Monsters, who decided to drop their trailer that day. I always forget about that, but it was really funny, but nevertheless, it was still amazing. I think Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid is, I think it's really hard to put in the words for me. Again, just speaking back, everyone went through a lot during that time. Chris had his own health problems. I had my health problems. Vinny had his health problems. Sean went through computers. Computers. I'm pretty sure Vinny went through a computer too. It was, a lot was put into it. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of meetings was put into this, and it was to see the product and to see the people, our fans and everyone, appreciate for what it is. And to this day, it's actually our most viewed video on our channel, and it's still an amazing thing, and I will forever cherish this film. And now you can see why it does overshadow Space Godzilla now. It's a big reason.
So what was next for the studio? When Wrath of the Hybrid was released, Chris believed that all was done, and the series was over to move on to other prospects. Nico, on the other hand, had other plans. With the success of their trilogy, Nico had a burst of enthusiasm to continue, thus taking the trilogy and branding it under the name we know today, Kenshin Studios. With this new branding, Nico and Chris wanted to expand the team and start making original content on top of fan-made content. This year of the studio would prove to be a challenge, however. By starting a Patreon, setting up art at G-Fest 2019 Artist Alley, and creating a new project under the code name Chaos, the team was hoping to expand the brand.
So, the aftermath of Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid. So pretty much after Wrath of the Hybrid, we were gonna call it quits. That didn't last long. that lasted maybe an hour after the premiere. I remember gathering together the team, and I caused a little bit of a ruckus. I was causing a little bit. I'm like, hey, I was already plotting and planning stuff for the future, and I think Chris was still thinking about it. I think everyone else was okay with it. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I still think Chris was kind of back and forth in the idea because it was supposed to be a trilogy. That's all it was supposed to be it. But there was something special. There was something special that we had, and I think we all recognized it. I think Chris knew it too. It was just a matter of kind of needing to see the potential and needing to see where it goes.
With the aftermath of Wrath of the Hybrid, I actually thought that was it. We kind of agreed that after the trilogy was over, we were going to move on and do other things. Like Nico and I weren't really going to work together anymore. We were just kind of like, all right, cool, we did it. But at that G-Fest, after we premiered it, shortly after, Nico came up to me and he had some extra ideas. Some new ideas, some new monsters, and he had some new ideas and stories to tell. And so from there, we decided to sort of do a rebrand a little bit, and that's where we sort of changed it from just being known as the Kenshin Godzilla Fan Trilogy to calling ourselves Kenshin Studios. Although at the time we were called the Kenshin series.
After Wrath of the Hybrid was released, I think we kind of felt like we were on top of the world, and we're like, oh, we managed to finish this thing that felt impossible. Now we can do really anything, and but we really didn't have an idea of where we wanted to go, and so we just decided, let's just try this and we'll roll with it.
Originally, we were the Kenshin Trilogy series, so all it was supposed to be was just a trilogy. We created a channel, we upload everything just about the trilogy, and that's it. That's all it was supposed to be. And then we had Kudajira, this brand new monster, just kind of there. It's just there now. We didn't really have any plans, but now that we have this monster, now we kind of think we can do something with this. We have something original here. We have something to build off of. And that's when we decided we could do animation. So let's go for it. Let's do animation. Let's create some original content. And I think that was our goal for that. And with that, we actually went back to G-Fest in 2019, and we had a little table at Artist Alley in collaboration with that Kaiju Danielle, who was also selling her own art there, and that was awesome. We really got ourselves out there as a studio in a different way, other than having to show like something at the film festival. What we did was we promoted ourselves with our original Kaiju, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. It was a completely different experience, and I really hope we get to do that again sometime soon, because that was awesome.
In 2019, it was a very interesting year because we just got done with Wrath of the Hybrid, and we felt like we were on top of the world. We felt like nothing could stop us at that point. And especially myself, I had such this confidence boost, and I thought that we could really take this somewhere. And so we decided to go into a full-blown like original storytelling along with some of the fan fiction that we do. But we used Kudajira, we made a new model for him. We were going full force. We made a Patreon. We were like serious about it. We wanted to make a business out of it. And so with expanding the team even further, we wanted to expand the horizons where we wanted to make comic books and we wanted to make video games. 2019 was definitely a year of ambition for sure. But unfortunately, a lot of that ambition didn't really come to fruition here.
2019 was a very, very, very interesting year. So it started off extremely ambitious. We had a team of me, Chris, Sean, Vinny, Danielle, and Aiden. Some of you may not know Aiden, but he was a friend of Chris's. He was part of the team. He was helping with like some of the creative direction, and I do believe he had kind of had a role with the social media posting at the time too. But slowly but surely, personal lives happen, and that's completely understandable. So one by one, I believe first Danielle, she had stuff that she had to take care of. She left the studio. Okay. Then towards the end of 2019, Chris was dealing with personal stuff. He left the studio. Okay, that's a big hit now. He's one of the co-founders of the studio. He's one of the co-creatives, co-writers. He dealt with a lot, and now he leaves, and then Aiden follows in suit. He was a friend of Chris's, so. And I think it was a struggle of trying to create content and release content because just nothing was really cooking up the way it was. Nothing was really, I shouldn't say planned out. We had plans, just it wasn't really executing the way that we wanted to or at the pace that we wanted to. And then again, personal lives. People have personal things they have to deal with, so that was the biggest change. So then we were left with me, Vinny, and Sean. It was a 3-man show, so yeah, it was very interesting. We didn't have very many meetings, and when we did meetings, we kind of had to grind out a lot and kind of brainstorm a lot and kind of figure out what we had to do. And it was an interesting time.
Attack on Kaiju. I don't really have a good answer for that. All I have is that I started it in 2014-15-ish, and I was so determined to finish it no matter how bad, no matter how ugly it looked. And I won't really say it turned out good. I'll just say that it definitely was finished. And I never want to touch that series again. In 2019, I went from animator to animator plus extra steps. Basically, I started doing more things. I did more editing. I had more of an input on the creative side. I helped get the Kudajira model made, so for better or for worse, that's my fault. But yeah, so that I just kind of was animator with extra steps.
2019 had a tremendous promise. We were tremendously ambitious. I think we showed promise, and we still are. It was just we were just way too ambitious for what we wanted to do, and obviously with funding. But 2019, I think, started off great. Again, very ambitious. We just didn't really execute in 2019. So that's the best way I can describe 2019, actually.
During 2019, the team was creating a new project under the code name Chaos, and it was to focus on their original monster, Kudajira. With this new project, the team wanted to create a fresh new design for the creature. The process of creating the new design would be the easiest part of the studio's endeavors in 2019.
originally we thought the original model of Kudajira, like it was Kudajira. So what Danielle originally designed, that was Kudajira, but it wasn't up to par to every other like Godzilla model. It still looked it looked like it could be an MMD model from like the late 2000s. So we wanted to up ourselves, this is good. We need to separate something from the Wrath of Hybrid film. It needs to be a more original monster separated from the Space Godzilla hybrid model. It needs to be its own unique character. So we asked Danielle, hey, we like your design, can we get some recolorations in? And that's what she did. And then we found someone who could create the model. And yeah.
The thought process of redesigning Kudajira came about because of a few criticisms about Kudajira's design in Wrath of the Hybrid. Some people thought that he looked out of place, that he looked a little too cartoonish. So what happened was Sean actually went to a model designer and he basically redesigned Kudajira from the ground up. And with the use of Danielle Faye's sketches that she made some new concept art of him. We changed his color scheme. We changed him to look a little bit more fierce, a little bit more realistic. And then with that, the 3D model came about, and it just blew our minds when we finally received that model.
So I was in charge of getting the Kudajira model made, or rather finding someone to make it. And I found someone who had really good skills in photorealism sculpting. And the model he made for Kudajira was really well done. It just was not optimized whatsoever for animation. And that's not the guy's fault, that's my fault. He did a really good job with the parameters we gave him. We did manage to make it into a workable model, so we managed to salvage it at least.
I think the biggest challenge on our end, Danielle can say differently. Probably the biggest challenge for us was probably picking the colors, and probably trying to figure out something, do something with the chest mouth. That was probably one of the biggest challenges, and probably the other one is the sheer amount of polys. I think that's the correct terminology. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. But it's extremely high. A lot higher than what it needs to be, and I know it kills animators' computers. So Ultimo and Sean, sorry, you guys are soldiers for doing this for us, but I'm so sorry.
So the evolution of Kudajira is something I deeply supported. Don't get me wrong, we did what we had back then with what we had, but this redesign I feel like was needed because his new look is far superior than the old one, and it looks like an actual kaiju. Menacing is the dominant word I would use to describe this redesign of Kudajira. And he's just more demonic looking almost. He's menacing, kind of like a GMK vibe in a way. But I'm glad we got to redesign him, and I'm glad that I could reflect with the theme that I made for him. I deeply love the redesign, and the evolution of them all together is just perfect.
From my understanding, there were no challenges in creating the new Kudajira design. I think it was a pretty seamless process. Making the concept and then getting the 3D model was pretty nice, and I think the rigging of the model had some issues here and there. But overall, I think it was pretty good.
I really like it. It's such a huge upgrade. It's such a huge upgrade from the original model for sure. It's just such a big upgrade. The old Kudajira again has a special place in my heart from Wrath of the Hybrid, but this new Kudajira, it brought in a new attitude. It brought in really a whole new identity to Kenshin Studios and what we want to do and what we wanted to do. So that is our mascot. The Kudajira you've seen Kenshin Chaos, which again in the future, that is our mascot.
I think compared to the Wrath of the Hybrid model, this is definitely top tier style and design for the character, and I think it just fits his attitude even more, looking this ferocious, brutal, sort of just mean guy.
I think the audience received the new Kudajira fairly well. I think they were received very well. We'll keep it at that. I can only speak for what I remember from 4 years ago.
And the reception that we got from Kudajira's new design was amazing. Everyone loves the new design. They were saying that this is way better than what the original look was. They were saying that this looks so awesome and his design looks more realistic. So the audience reaction to the new design of Kudajira was definitely successful.
With the dawn of 2020, Kenshin Studios was left with only Nico, Sean, and Vinnie. The impact of Ultimo, Danielle, Aiden, and Chris leaving the studio in 2019 put the studio in a hard spot to begin the new decade. With many series and projects planned during 2019 becoming scrapped or put on the back burner, the one project that survived was Kenshin Chaos. The series was heavily changed due to so many cuts. After it all, they managed to work it out and get the first episode of Kenshin Chaos out on February 25th, 2020. With the first episode out, this would begin the long and tough road for the studio. Luckily, after a few months, and before the second episode of Chaos was released, Chris returned to his position at the studio, and thus began the rebirth of the studio. With a new logo and sense of inspiration, Nico, Chris, Sean, and Vinnie would all have a more positive outlook. Unfortunately, that would not last long going into the following year.
A lot happened in 2020. COVID happened in 2020. So in 2020, obviously we were with, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chris was no longer with the studio, Danielle was no longer with the studio, A was no longer with the studio, so it was a three-man band. It was me, Sean, and Vinnie. So we had this list of battles, we knew what we wanted to do, and it was just a matter of putting it together. 2020, again, we lost members, and we just had to get ourselves back on track and really figure out what we were going to do with the studio and kind of keep it together.
2020 was definitely a hard year, and not for the ways that some people would think. COVID didn't really affect the team in any really negative way. It was more of other personal issues that were going on. I was going through some personal issues. I know that Sean might have had, and a lot of the other team members were. And then actually Danielle Faye also left the team. I'm pretty sure it was in between 2019 or 2020. So we lost our concept artists, and it was very rough on the team. And we also lost our community manager as well. And then I actually decided to take a leave of absence too, because I needed to clear my head with a lot of just mental issues that were going on in my head. And so 2020 was definitely a rough year, and I feel bad for Nico and Sean and Vinnie that were left behind, especially because we were trying to make this new series called Kenshin Chaos.
2020, I believe, is when Kenshin Chaos started things off. We actually finally aired some of our episodes, the first being New DeGregory versus Old DeGregory, which is essentially the new model versus the old model. I wanted for that episode, I just wanted to bring back some kind of theme from Wrath of the Hybrid to represent the old version, and then the new version would be the new theme that I had for him, which just was far superior musically and physically, I believe. So yeah, that was a fun episode. It was like the first aired episode is like, yeah, we got it done. We can keep going. We had a tight schedule. So we got that done. We immediately, as soon as we finished the first episode, we immediately started working on the next. I believe Nico was writing, Sean was animating at the time. He used motion capture with his PS5, I believe. It was a fun experience for him, and I could still do, it was still almost like Wrath of the Hybrid, because he would send in animations of the first episode, and I would just do the same thing like I did with Wrath of the Hybrid. I would just compose along that, and it usually would fit, or I would edit it myself, or they would edit it. The music essentially fits almost every episode. It was a fun experience. 2020, yeah, it was a good year for Kenshin Chaos. Yeah.
Kenshin Chaos then is very different from Kenshin Chaos now. Chaos then was a lot more of us putting in so much detail and thought behind every episode, and we had another person in the studio at the time who was handling all the lore and the details and what ways the episodes would interconnect and all that. But when he left, and we didn't really have a plan after that, so we just decided let's just let it be monster fights, and that's what it became after. Kudajira was, at least with my episodes, was mainly motion capture. I could not imagine key animating it like Ultimo does. He is an absolute trooper. I would never be able to do that. But even mocap wasn't perfect either. You know, sometimes I'd be doing something in mocap and I'd like lift my arm really high, and the model, the way it would show up in the render, it'd be like this big gaping hole, and you just see right through it. And we managed to cover it up sometimes, like in dark lighting, but sometimes when there's some day lighting, you couldn't help but see this giant gash going through the armpit and cutting straight into the background. So that was a big part of the troubles with animating him.
So originally what we had planned, we had this huge roadmap plan from 2019 that was scrapped. That was completely pushed off to the side. It had a whole story that we said, no, that is too much. We don't have the time. We don't have the manpower. No. So what we did was we were just going to do battle after battle after battle with no story, no rhyme or reason, just battles to show off Kudajira. That was the whole plan. That was going to be it. So what we did was me, Sean, and Vinny came up with a list of monsters. At least we came up with, there was a couple drafts. At least we knew from the first two battles what we wanted it. At least the first one. So the first one would be new Kudajira versus old Kudajira. So it'd be the new Kudajira killing the old model, and it kind of went from there. Now it's from episode by episode up until the second episode. Actually, the second episode is what that was Destroy versus Kiryu. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
As far as how Kudajira's evolved, I wouldn't say he's evolved too much. I think that's not true. I think Ultimo gave him a lot more life, and it made him a lot more of a fun and interesting character than I ever could have. I always was just trying to make Kudajira seem like this impossible foe that no one could beat, and Ultimo definitely gave him more of a grounded feel, grounded in he has weaknesses, he's not invincible, but yeah, overall I think he's lived his life as our mascot, and I think he works pretty well.
Yeah, 2020, I believe, was a lot like Wrath of the Hybrid in terms of getting things finished or worked on. We still had a tight schedule that we had to go by. Me and Sean would work together. He would get things done animated, and I would look at his clips that he would send in, and I would compose, try to fill the music or fill that clip in which he sent and make it fit. Yeah, it was pretty much still the same. Occasionally there would be a change or two in the script or something animation-wise, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too difficult. We just adjust and accordingly. Yeah, so it wasn't too bad for 2020. It was still a lot of fun.
Again, the loss of manpower and COVID, that really smacked us really hard. Honestly, COVID could have worked in our favor but again, loss of manpower. Just Sean went through another damn computer, his screen blacked out, a lot of shit. A lot of stuff happened. Oh man.
With Kenshin Chaos, it was supposed to be this story that revolved around Kudajira, and he was going to be going around fighting other well-known kaiju like Godzilla, King Kong, Ultraman, Gamera. The problem was, though, is that we had this ambitious scope and this ambitious storyline that we wanted to tell, but then things started to fall apart. We weren't making enough money on our Patreon, so we ended up shutting that down. And then, like I said, our community manager, he left, Danielle Faye left, and then I left. So the production of Chaos kind of flew out the window for a little bit.
So the first episode of Chaos, I remember we were just trying to get it done as fast as possible. Like, we've gone a really long time without any content. We want something done now. So, for better or for worse, the first episode of Kenshin Chaos was made in 2 weeks, which, considering how long an episode takes now to make, is insane. But we were able to do it because we just really wanted to get something out there to start something. And then every other episode we could take our time with it moving forward.
It's just a matter of struggling to kind of figure out what we were going to do with Kenshin Chaos. It's just kind of this series that we announced. It was there. I'm 99% sure we announced it, and then there was Attack on Kaiju. There was a lot of stuff on the table that was just kind of up in the air. It was kind of trying to game plan what we were going to do at that point in time, and it was we had to figure out something. And again, Kenshin Chaos up until episode 2 was probably halfway through production, was episode by episode. So up until about April 2020 was when me, Sean, and Vinny finally came together and said, okay, let's figure out the rest of these episodes. What do we want them to be? So that gives you an idea of what troubles we went through in 2020.
It wasn't too long after I left that I actually found out that Nico and Sean and Vinny were really going to try and continue Kenshin Chaos, and I saw in my sub box that Kenshin Chaos episode 1 was released. And the cool thing is that actually the first episode of Kenshin Chaos was supposed to be the last episode of the season. It was supposed to be the old Kudajira versus the new Kudajira, but that was actually supposed to be saved for the ending. But again, I wasn't in the studio at the point, so they decided, I guess, to have it at the beginning of the season, and then we sort of had to work our way out that. And then they did episode 2, and episode 2 just blew me away. And I actually ended up coming back to content creation shortly after. It was around June of 2020, and I came back to the studio and I asked Nico if I could come back and retain, my position. And I came right back in, and it's like nothing changed. And then that's when episode 2 was released, and so I was able to see the potential. And that's when Nico and I got back to the drawing board, and we started to write out the rest of season 1.
In 2020, I mean, we all had. What can I say? 2020, it was just a shit year for everybody. Nothing was going the way we wanted. We were still working on things. We were still trying to push through those barriers. But everybody in the studio had their own personal issues going on, and we couldn't make an episode in 2 weeks. I'll tell you that much. Sometimes an episode would go on for like 5 or 6 months in production, and we just had to work with that.
The response from the first 3 episodes of Chaos was received well, and Nico and Chris believed everything was going smoothly. Then a surprise hit the studio hard. Sean, who was the main animator in the studio since 2016, had to leave due to personal reasons. This left the series with no animators, as well as a side project helmed by Sean. Attack on Kaiju was taken off the project list. Nico and Chris were left a bit off, but they dusted off and looked to new talent to continue the Chaos series. This would prove to be harder than they thought.
2020, I think, was kind of a test of will. It was a test of will to see if we were really dedicated, if we really wanted to make this work. And I think we all came together and we made it work. And I'm really proud of everyone who was involved at that point in time, and really came together to make everything work. And Chris came back too. He eventually came back. He came back in the middle of 2020 as well, which was awesome. So that helped us out. That helped us out in the creative department. Episode 3, Kudajira versus Biolante. I was feeling really good about it. And we had brought in two more animators at the time, Showery Dragoon and Redox. We were confident, we were heading in the right direction. They were going to help out Sean a little more. We brought in some help. And we thought, finally, we're going to get some consistency with Kenshin Chaos, yada, yada, yada.
When episode 3 of Kenshin Chaos was finished, I say that was a big victory for us, because that was my first involvement with Kenshin Chaos in terms of writing and choreographing the battles and just producing it. And then it was also sort of a big deal because it actually turned out to be one of Sean's last animations that he would do for us for a very long time. Sean's departure from the studio was a major hit to us. He unfortunately was having to go through some personal issues, and when he left, it left a giant hole in the studio, and we had to figure out, well, how are we going to finish Kenshin Chaos, because we don't have an animator, so now we have to go around and try to find animators again.
It was something we were blindsided by. Sean had some personal things. It always comes down to personal stuff in the studio, and we always take that stuff very seriously because we were all there at one point. So it affected it greatly. So we were in the production of episode 4 when he announced his departure to take care of some personal business. At first we offered him, hey, you could take like more of like an advisory role where you just kind of oversee the animation rather than doing it, and he said okay. Then I think as Showery and Redox, they continued to try to produce the animation. I think Sean kind of got tied in with more and more the animation side of things, and I think at the end it was just better for him to leave, period.
So in order to continue Kenshin Chaos, we just, like we normally do, we went out and we found animators that we could contact and be like, hey, would you guys be able to help us with the next episode? And we ended up finding a couple animators that would help us, but then later down the road, the production just took too long and it ended up not necessarily working out the way we thought it would. I would say leaving 2021 was definitely one of the hardest years because literally nothing was getting done in the studio. The Kenshin Chaos, we were trying to finish episode 4, and episode 4 was on basically development hell for almost a year.
Chris and I, towards the end of 2021, we got a meeting together and we decided that we had to come up with a budget. There was just absolutely no way that we could do this without a budget or anything like that. We had to basically restructure the studio like, hey, we can't treat this like a hobby anymore. We have to treat it like a business. That's the only thing. We need a Kickstarter. We need to do this. And it was, I think it was really tough on us too, because this was our do or die moment. This was our do or die.
Working on episode 4 of Kenshin Chaos, it was actually one of our biggest episodes, I believe. We went with a different animator. His name is Methlo Kaiju Fan. He is a very talented animator on YouTube. I'd known of him before he even worked with us. I loved his Shin Godzilla Rain versus Gigan clips that he keeps putting out. He's a very talented animator, and I'm glad I could work with him. Along with that, we brought Gigan from Final Wars into this episode, and that just so happens to be my favorite kaiju from that film. So, along with bringing back his Final Wars theme, I wanted to bring something original for Gigan because I just love the kaiju. I love his design, and I just wanted to bring my own take on it, But it harmonized well with the Final Wars theme as well as Kudajira's, because they kept going back and forth with each other, and the theme reflected very well, I believe, off of that. So yeah, round and round. Overall, it was a very fun episode to work on, and I'm glad I could work with everybody involved.
When we found Methlo Kaiju Fan and Gave Sir Studios to help us finish episode 4, it was such a relief. And with Methlo Kaiju Fan's animation quality, it made a huge difference. And it was sort of a small comeback for the studio where we were able to come back and say like, hey, here's where we are. And with the launch of episode 4, we also launched our Kickstarter to help promote the rest and to also financially support the rest of season 1.
Originally, we had asked Sean, hey, would it be easier on you if we went to go find help for this? And he said yes. So we kind of had a call to action, like, hey, we're looking for animators to really help us out, and we could really use your help. Send in a resume, yada yada yada. And that's when we brought in talent. Brandon, who is now a part of the studio, he sent in his resume for actually animation, and he had all this other experience, which was crazy, with video editing and modeling and all this other sort of stuff. So we actually found a different position for him. Brandon, awesome guy. Awesome. Really appreciate everything he's done with the studio so far. And then we then interviewed Red Ox and Shower Dragoon. We brought them on to kind of help Sean with the load. Eventually, towards the end of 2021, they also had to depart from the studio for, again, personal reasons. It happens. And that was kind of the end of that.
With episode 4 finally behind the studio, the next question was how to finish the series and how to continue a bright future for the studio. With a lack of a budget and Methlo Kaiju Fan 97 unable to help with the rest of the series, Nico and Chris were up against a wall, and things were not looking great for the studio. A final effort and restructuring was in order, and this would be the final attempt to make it work, or fade trying.
Episode 4. Wow. Beautiful. It felt really good to finally get episode 4 out there. That was in production since 2020, I'm pretty sure. Episode 4 was in production for like a year and a half, and then finally seeing it come to life because with the help of Methlo Kaiju Fan and Gavester. Didn't want to leave him out because he helped with he helped there as well. No, it was really awesome. We felt like a second breath of life come back into the studio after the release of episode 4. We felt alive again. Second wind, if you must, and it was awesome. And I loved it. It really propelled us to say, like, people are still interested in Kenshin Chaos. We saw the views kind of build up. Did we want to keep this going? How bad do we want to keep this going? And I think we wanted it bad enough. It was definitely a rough time. We didn't know where it was going. We didn't know if we would be able to work together at this point. It was really all questions. And 2021 was just a really rough time, just for me personally. And if the studio would have kind of fallen under at the time of 2021, I don't know what would happen. I don't know where I'd be.
So Nico and I went to the drawing board, and we realized that we couldn't, with our personal lives and our personal responsibilities, we couldn't necessarily continue doing Kenshin Studios the way that we were doing in the past. We needed financial backing to continue these giant projects. And so with the rest of season 1, episodes 5 through 10, we needed financial backing. So we decided to do a restructure of the whole studio, sort of make it into a business plan, and then we launched the Kickstarter. And then from there, the Kickstarter actually became a success, and we were able to continue season 1. If it wasn't for the success of the Kickstarter, I probably wouldn't be talking to you here right now, and Kenshin Studios would maybe have been shut down.
At the release of episode 4, was when we said, hey, we're going to do a Kickstarter for a goal of $2,000. If we can reach, and we would release this and promote this and push this to say, hey, if we can get this, we will continue Kenshin Chaos. If we don't, it's over. It's over. That's what we said. That was the bar. We set the bar high, and everyone came through. Me and Chris, we were under the impression, I think more Chris was under the impression that we weren't gonna make it. there was that doubt that like, hey, we made episode 4 happen, but like he didn't think this was going to happen. And I told him, trust the process, and it was going to work, and we just need to keep pushing it. And lo and behold, everyone who supported the studio, everyone that we know supported us and really came through, and it was special. It was really special and really showed how much people cared about the studio and Kenshin Chaos.
So looking back at 2022 with the channel, it was a major roller coaster for us and the team, and I feel that we overcame a lot of challenges, and now we've come back from it and we've learned a lot from it, and we're ready to tackle the next few years of Kenshin Studios.
We're definitely like adding some more originality in the long run. I didn't want to just bring back some old monster themes that we've heard before. I wanted to have my own original twist to it, I guess. Like, for example, Kudajira's theme, that was 100% original, and I wanted to keep that originality in every episode to a certain extent. As well as bring back like every monster that he fought. I wanted to respectfully recreate those themes, and I believe I've done so in a respectful manner. And I wanted to. That was the most challenging part, because some of these monsters I've never even remade before. For example, Ultraman. That was probably one of my biggest challenges, is Ultraman, because I've never seen Ultraman, never heard his theme before, so I had to do a lot of research for him, reflect that fun attitude theme. It's like uplifting almost. I wanted to put that in there because it's the original Ultraman theme that I used, and I wanted it to be 100% authentic. So that was pretty challenging as well. But at the same time, making it like almost harmonize with Kudajira's theme, like so they can coexist and fits right in. The transitions between that and an original theme was the most challenging part. Trying to make it transition into an original theme was probably the hardest part of every episode, because you have to make it sound perfect, and that that is quite difficult to do. But we got it done. That was I love a good challenge. Like, it's essentially in the music world, I'm always like to do better than what I've done in the past. So it's a fun challenge to do, and I'm glad I could do it. Another big example would be King Kong. Fun little fact, I've never recreated Akira Ifukube's King Kong theme until now, so that was a fun challenge for me because I'm a big fan of his. But along with the Ifukube's score, I also added a little hint of Henry Jackman's Kong Ska Island theme to it. You can barely hear it, but it's in there. If you go back and listen to it, it's in there. So that was also fun, blending the two themes together. The transition to Ifukube from that was just top notch, I believe. So that was a fun challenge, always getting that done. And the same thing within the time frame of which we were given for each episode. That was another big challenge. But yeah, other than that, it was smooth sailing for the most part, because we already got it halfway through from episode 1 to 5. So it was just good. Everything was running smoothly, and we got it done. So yeah, I believe another big challenge was making a Super Godzilla theme. Because in the original game that he's in, I don't believe they have a theme for him, specifically Super Godzilla, not Godzilla himself, because they brought back Ifukube's score for that. So I decided to bring back one of my old original themes for Godzilla, more specifically Shin Godzilla. Back when the trailer came out in 2016, I think it was around G-Fest time, I was so hyped up that I decided to make a theme of my own to reflect that trailer. And yeah, that was pretty. I was so excited back in the day. It was an awesome trailer. So I brought that theme back and I elevated it. I made it more powerful, a lot more stronger in terms of brass and strings, a lot like, very similar to what I did with Kudajira's theme when I brought back that one. So I wanted to reflect how powerful Super Godzilla is, because he does mop the floor with Kudajira in this theme, and I wanted the theme to reflect on that. And another good challenge for that episode was ending it, because essentially this is the season finale of the entire Kenshin Chaos series. So we wanted to end on a definite high note, so I wanted to, put a build-up theme and a good ending theme, just make it all come together and all end perfectly. So yeah, that was probably a good challenge as well. It's just ending it. But it was definitely a good challenge. I was glad I could take up the task for that. And yeah, it was just great. So yeah, looking back at Kenshin Chaos, it was a definite fun ride. As long as you have a good team to work together with, you'll get things done, achieve greater things than you ever have in the past. So it was it was awesome. I'm glad I could work with everybody here, new and old, because as long as you're being professional, but at the same time you're having fun, keep it professional, you'll get things done. And there was no issues, no problems. It was definitely a fun ride. I loved it. I'm glad to be a part of it.
We ended 2022 with a bang. So with that Kickstarter money, we were able to bring in Ultraman Ultimo, who had worked on Godzilla Wrath of the Hybrid with us. We had worked with him before, and we were able to pay him. We were able to pay our own, staff. I guess they're not staff, but they're our own team members, like Brandon and Vinny. We were able to pay them for their work that they put towards Kenshin Chaos, and the business model worked really well. And we were able to put a product that I'm really proud of. It was original. We were finally able to use Kudajira. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful, and I'm excited. And I was really excited when we dropped the boys at the end. 2022. What was a rough 2020 and 2021? 2022 was it. We persevered, we pushed through, we trusted the process, and we made it. And I think that is what this team's mindset is. We push through, we persevere, and we trust the process.
With Kenshin Chaos Season 1 behind the studio, we are at the 10-year anniversary of Kenshin Studios. Nico and Chris currently have some new ideas in the pipeline to make the next 10 years hopefully a fun time. The future of the studio is still uncertain due to personal life events happening to the whole team and the continued lack of funds for production. It has the potential to be a bright future still, and Nico and Chris are committed to continuing the passion that started this whole thing.
I'm confident, I'm really confident, and I'm really happy with what we did with the studio. And I'm really just I'm ecstatic of what we accomplished in 2022. And I'm glad that we were together and we accomplished all those things together in 2022. So going into 2023, I feel like we could accomplish really anything, and now it was time to regroup and kind of get together ideas. That was kind of the idea for 2023, and I think we were all under the impression of what's next now for us.
I feel super confident going into 2023. It's funny because we are halfway through 2023, but I feel confident finishing out this year and going into 2024 with a lot of confidence, because a lot of great things are happening behind the scenes now. Kenshin Chaos Season 1 is finished. Sean is actually sort of back with us, and he actually is helping us make a really cool project behind the scenes. There's another project that we've been very excited about and highly anticipate to make, and we're also doing another fun project that's on the side. And so a lot of cool things are coming.
My current thoughts on Kenshin Studios turning 10 years is making me feel old. I can't believe it's already been 10 years. I've been part of the team since 2015, so yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, the fact that you can stay together for 10 years and get things done, achieve great things together, is just saying something about the team as a whole. So yeah, I'm glad to be a part of this team, and I hope we can achieve a lot more in the future. All right. Yeah, my YouTube channel is Chenzo. What I do on there is just post all of my music tracks. Most of it is Kaiju related, mostly Godzilla. Sometimes it's another movie or other franchise that I like to do, like Star Trek, for example. In the past, I've done music for Godzilla Kaiju Battle Royale, and then Wrath of the Hybrid, and Kenshin Chaos as well, as you know. And helped out with Kaiju Crescendo for the Masaru Sato stores. Yeah, hit me up. Definitely look me up. As well as if you have something that you love to do, and if you somehow make it into a profession, go for it, because you will not regret it. As long as you are happy and you have fun doing it, you will do great things in the world. Have a good night.
So, the plans going forward. So right now, some of you may know, we are working on a new fan film. Sean is now back with us for this fan film. Really exciting stuff. I'm really happy, really excited to do it. I'm so happy to be working with him. So happy to be working with Chris and the whole crew. And then, it's going to be his first fan film with us. So I'm really hoping he's excited for it. I'm really happy for him. I'm really hoping, once we do premiere it, whenever that may be, whether it be at G-Fest or on YouTube or something, I'm really hoping he gets to experience that with us. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for this opportunity for Brandon. And because it's awesome being able to work with him, seeing what he's able to do. It's awesome to be able to work with Sean and seeing what he's able to do. And Chris as well. And Vinny surprises me all the time. And how Chris thinks of things and brings different perspectives into things, it's awesome. Just working with everyone is really awesome. But fan film on the way. Again, depending on when this is releasing, you may or may not know, there is a collaboration in the works. So get that buzzer ready, Chris. So we're currently working on a collaboration with an animation and collaboration with. We don't have a release date yet. We don't really have a release for anything for that related yet, but keep up to date with us.
Looking back at the last 10 years of working with Nico and creating Kenshin Studios has been one of the most defining things in my, I guess I would say, content creation career. It is something that I just don't really have words for, and I thank Nico so much for giving me the opportunity to do these things with him. If it wasn't for him asking me way back in the day to do this silly little fan film, none of this would be happening at all. And so it has been one of the most gratifying and experience boosting experiences that I could ever hope for. And I am very, very much looking forward to the future. I'm very, very much looking forward to continuing to do what we do for the next 10 years. And I'm very positive on where we're going with the studio.
Kenshin Studios turning 10 years old is pretty awesome because it just shows that we're willing to stick with something we believe in. At the end of the day, we're just fans and we love having fun. So if we never become like a bigger studio, that's totally fine, as long as we're happy doing what we love doing as fans. Then yeah. So I think Kenshin turning 10 years old is a good sign, because it shows we definitely have the strength to go longer than 10 years. Maybe 20. Who knows? I'm Queencraftables on Twitter and YouTube. I don't really do much on either of those platforms, but if you want to follow me, those are the places. Sometimes I'll tweet things that I'm working on, but that's about it. As far as projects I'll be working on in the future, I'm pretty dedicated to this current fan film for Kenshin Studios. That's kind of my next big project, I'd say. But other than that, yeah, bye.
Studio's like a family for me. It's a family for me. It's something I look forward to working on every single week. At this point in time, we're having meetings every week for our projects, and it's beautiful. And there's nothing more that I look forward to than to get together with these people, be able to express our ideas and figure out solutions, or create these wonderful projects, and working with all of these people. It's just, honestly, there's nothing else like it. I would not trade this feeling in the world. I wouldn't trade working with any of these people in the world for anything else. And I think what we really create here in the studio is truly one of a kind, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. Yeah, that is it.
You bear resemblance to the legendary Haiwa of the Noboru race.
What are you talking about? What are you?
I am